If you want to plan for the future, we can help your dreams come true. A degree that gets you the right job. It's affordable and easy for you. It's Untitled Community College. Friendly people that know who you are. It's Untitled Community College. A college so close that can take you so far.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Changing Lives. My name is Gennaro DeAngelis. I'm the Dean of Administration at Asnunta Community College. In today's episode, we're going to be having a discussion about the process behind applying to and enrolling at a college or university, Asnunta or otherwise. And I'd like to start by introducing our guest tonight. Our guest is Stacy Muslin. Stacy is serving as the Registrar at the moment for Asnunta Community College. Stacy and I have actually worked together in the past at a few different stops. We worked together at the University of Connecticut in that institution's financial aid office, and then we worked again when Stacy, when I left UConn, we actually left on the same day as it were. I moved on to ACC, whereas you moved on to the Community College System office, and even though they weren't in the same building, we still worked together quite a bit via email and phone and by meeting in person on occasion. So Diane Colloqui is Asnunta's permanent registrar. She is currently on leave helping the system office with a very specific project. So we had an opening. We needed somebody who knew the enrollment process very well, who was a well-respected higher education administrator, and who also had a very good understanding of our systems, what we call our banner system, which is our enterprise system that oversees all kinds of things, including enrollment. And first person I thought of was you, because you checked all those three boxes, and we feel very, very fortunate and very, very lucky that you decided to join us. So it's been 3 months or so?
Not even 3 months. Not even 3 months. But thank you very much for the compliments, and thank you for inviting me to be here today.
No,
excited
that you could be here. So I figured we would start with, can you just tell me a little bit about, what a registrar does, and maybe, just kind of in general, and then maybe specifically at ACC, as you understand it so far. Anyway,
as I understand it so far, right. Well, I read that a registrar can be thought of as a choreographer of academic work at a college. We are involved in many different things, and we work with many different offices and directly with students. So we will help academic deans and academic affairs with the creation of academic calendars, course schedules. We work with IT systems, as you said. Our student information system is Banner, and we will make changes within the setup of that system to facilitate things like registration for students, and that's something that we're working on right now, looking forward to the winter and spring terms that are coming up. We also facilitate registration for students. We have online registration for students, but in some circumstances the students would prefer to come in person, or they may have a special circumstance, so we will help them with that. We will also help faculty with grade processing. So when it comes time to put in those final grades, we will make some adjustments in the information system, open that up for faculty. Assist the faculty if there are any issues. For example, sometimes a student might have an incomplete in a course. That's something that the registrar's office will input, and then we give the student so much time to complete the course requirements in the next semester, and we would enter the final grade for that converted grade. We're also the keepers of the academic records. So when students need their enrollment to be verified for various purposes, there is a way that they can do that themselves in our information system, but for a lot of students, they might need some assistance or they need some very specific information. We facilitate that. We also help with transcripts when students need transcripts. There's an online way of doing that, but again, not everybody can use the online process, or they might need something very specific, so we help with that. We're also one of the experts on something called FERPA, which is the federal regulation around privacy of student records. And there is a way that students can opt out of having any directory information reported. We also are involved in maintaining data security. And then finally, it's not really finally, we do other things, but from a student perspective, we're involved in graduation. So when a student is getting ready to graduate from a certificate or degree program, they let us know. We run a degree audit, and we analyze whether or not they've fulfilled all of the requirements needed for that degree or certificate, and we communicate with the students and let them know whether or not they're on track, or there's something missing. And sometimes that involves getting transcripts from other institutions and analyzed and everything. So, and we help with things as little as address changes for students, all the way through working with faculty and deans and administration on making sure that our academic policies and procedures are being adhered to. So in that way, we are kind of like a choreographer of academic work. We don't actually admit the students, we don't teach the students, we don't create the policies, but we help to implement all of those things.
Wow. So it sounds like you're pretty busy.
I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, it's kind of, that's interesting, when people think about, I think so anyway, when people think about what goes into applying to college and then ultimately enrolling, I don't think a lot of thought is given to the behind the scenes work that the registrar does. I mean, I think most of the attention is paid to, okay, I have to get through the admissions process. I have to apply, I have to be accepted, and then for many students there's also the financial aid piece that needs to be kind of navigated, the application process, the steps that are then taken if you're fortunate enough to be awarded a financial aid package, making sense of that, trying to put that into perspective, figuring out what it means. Those are the two steps that I think cause most of the anxiety for students and families, when they're trying to figure out the whole onboarding process. Yeah. The registration piece, getting registered for courses is kind of like the, not the easy part per se, but it's the piece that comes after those two more kind of anxiety-inducing steps. So to hear, all the other things that you talked about, so for a student that wanted to, you mentioned that you verify enrollment. So if a student, is that like if a student has to verify their enrollment for health insurance purposes, or?
Sometimes there are those things in order to verify that they are, registered for X number of credits. We also have students who need a particular kind of enrollment verification or forms filled out for certain benefits that they may receive, housing, food assistance, that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right, for health insurance as well, sometimes we'll get those. And it's funny, nowadays there's a lot of talk about automation and online systems and everything, and those are absolutely true, and we want to roll out every bit of technology to make our students' lives easier and allow them to do what they need to do themselves. But the honest truth is that sometimes they need to come in and talk to somebody and say, I need this, and can you help me with that? So we're definitely there for them. And I think of the registrar as really being the hub of a wheel, because we have so many contact points. We work very closely with admissions, financial aid, the dean of students, academic deans, faculty, on a wide variety of issues that impact students. So it's really interesting work, and then we get to work with the students themselves. They come up to the window and they need assistance or they have a question. And we see the students when they're first registering, all the way through that graduation process. We touch them at all of those parts, and so it's really exciting and rewarding work.
Yeah, we at Nuntech, we every May and this year, you'll get to experience it. We obviously we go through the graduation ceremony, and it's always a really kind of cool way, fun way to end the year. I mean, working at ACC, it's not a big college necessarily, so that means that, as I'm sure you're finding out, people that work on the front lines tend to wear lots of hats.
Yeah,
we tend to be very busy. We take a great deal of pride in providing really high quality service to students, and it's a small enough place where you get to know a lot of the students, you get to recognize them by name, or by face and by name.
Yep.
So, I think it makes it all the more fun and rewarding when you go through the graduation process. Even someone like myself, who tends to work more behind the scenes, when I sit up on stage for graduation, I tend to I've met that student,
Yep.
I recognize that student's on student government. So it's a really fun place to work in that respect. You get to really kind of see the fruits of your labor at the end. So
I think that's a good point that you had about just the atmosphere of Nantucket being very open. It is a small school,
right.
But that's a good thing for so many students, and we have such a wide variety of students, different backgrounds. Everybody from somebody coming straight out of high school, never been in college before, to we have a student population of seniors, who take classes, after their regular career is done, but they still love learning and everything. And I think that combination of students of all ages and backgrounds, it really has a nice population and adds to the learning experience. And the nice thing also is that it's small. So I think it's a little less intimidating for certain people who might be a little more afraid to dip their toe into the higher education waters. In a big environment, this is a great place for them to either start out or stay, because we have so many wonderful degree and certificate programs, both credit and non-credit, and I think it is a really special place. And I've heard stories from students saying that it was a lifesaver for them, at a time that they really needed that education, but they needed it in a really affirming environment, and that Nantucket was able to provide that for them, which is really great to hear, especially as a new employee. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to get behind that too. So it's a great place.
Oh, that's great. So we're talking about obviously some of the steps that go along with getting enrolled at a college or university. So, as we sit here, it's middle to getting towards the end of October. So, even though it seems like a long way off, next fall is going to come before you know it. So, as students start to go through the process of applying to colleges, potentially, certainly for the spring, if they're looking to start in the spring potentially, or even though we're 11 months away, even for starting to prepare to enroll next fall, can you take us through that process and some of the steps that are part of it, and maybe some of the hurdles that students will have to jump through?
Sure.
Or jump over, I should say.
Yeah, around,
Through,
under,
around,
whatever,
whatever.
Whatever they need to do. Well, I think the first thing is it's always a good idea to visit the institution, and we're going to have an open house on November 12th, coming up at 5:30. I think it's 5:30 to 7:30. Students will be able to learn about all the programs that we offer, take a tour, attend certain information sessions. I think that's always a good first step, even if you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to start until August 2020, end of August 2020. So, but come visit us. See what we're about and everything, and see the beautiful building.
Especially if you haven't been there in a couple of years, because
No.
I know you actually grew up in this area, and I don't know if you had been to Nantucket recently before you started working with us, but people that I know that come to campus and haven't been here for a few years are just kind of taken aback at the physical transformation that the campus has undergone.
Yeah, definitely. It is great to see. So I think, visiting schools, that's a great first step. And then the next step is applying, and you could apply to Nantucket for next fall now.
Right.
That application is available. So application procedures can vary slightly depending on the type of student. So if you're not transferring from an institution and you don't have to worry about getting transcripts from that institution to us for evaluation of, okay, what courses have you completed, haven't you completed? I mean, it can be just filling out the application. We have an online application. We also have paper copies, or you can come in person during regular business hours, whatever meets your needs.
And now's probably a good time to do that, right? Because it's not super duper busy.
Yeah, it's always good to, apply not only for admission, but also for financial aid when it's not super, super busy.
The earlier the better.
The earlier the better. And so application processes will, you submit your application. We do have open admission. You have to submit the your proof of high school completion, okay? Unless you already have a degree at another institution, and you'd be giving us that transcript, and then that requirement is waived.
But even if a high school senior wouldn't want to fill out their application now, obviously they wouldn't have graduated.
That's
so,
okay. You're
so
right,
they can
right.
provide it at a
when
later
they
date.
do,
Right.
next June when they graduate. Exactly. Good point. So high school seniors can still contact our admissions office. And then the other things we need, what we should have prior to them starting is the completion of high school documentation and also immunization records. Those are important as well. And if people have any questions about that, like what kind of immunizations, they can contact admissions, and it's actually on the application as well. We also ask the students to do a skill assessment. So when they come to us, we make sure that they are placed into the correct classes so that they can be successful, particularly the English and math classes.
Right.
So students will schedule a testing session just to make sure that that is done. And that's part of the admissions process in a nutshell.
So that placement test basically determines whether or not students can jump right into college level math and English, or if not, maybe they just have to do some preparatory work before getting into that level.
And even if you need that preparatory work, it doesn't mean that you can't take your college level classes. It's just those English and math classes.
Right.
It is recommended that you don't leave your English and math to the very, very end.
Sure.
Because you can gain so much. I mean, you have wonderful English classes that will work on your reading, your critical reading skills, your analysis, your composition skills, and everything that can really help you throughout your career at Asnuntuck or wherever you go. Your career once you leave us. So that's the admissions process. Financial aid processes, the financial aid application for this year and next year are both available now.
Right.
So students can do that, and sometimes it can feel a little strange to be thinking about financial aid so far in the future. But if you want one-on-one assistance, we have wonderful financial aid professionals at Asnuntuck, really, really great people. And like you said, if you do these things early, you can get a little bit better one-on-one attention when it's less busy.
Sure.
If you wait until the week before classes to do your financial aid application, which is the free application for federal student aid or FAFSA, or to even submit your application to Asnuntuck, you're not going to get that individualized attention. And I think that's what people really want. They want that, assurance from a professional that, okay, everything is being taken care of and they're all set.
Right, and being able to do the FAFSA this early for next fall is a relatively new thing, right? It's only in the last, typically, or I shouldn't say typically, but in the past, you had to wait until January, right, to do the FAFSA for the following year. But the Department of Education has actually backed it up a couple months and has allowed students to use income information from the previous year.
Yes.
Which is important, because I know that in the past, when you had to use the year that it just ended, so it's available in January, you had to use income information from the year that ended in December. A couple things would happen. Students would either assume that, hey, I can't fill this out until I file my taxes, which wasn't true.
Which is not true,
But
understandable.
Understandable, but and we would try to tell students that as often as we could, and, don't wait. But the flip side of that is that students would often fill it out estimating income numbers, which may or may not have been close, and that would, in a lot of ways, that could slow the process down, could even make it longer if they had to go back and make changes. So I really was excited when the Department of Education changed that rule, and now really just kind of staying with the spirit of get it done as early as you can. You know, so if you're filling out the FAFSA now in 2019, you actually could be using income information from 2018 or 2017. Do I have that right?
So I think, you know, if you're filling it out for the 2020-21 year, you're using 2018 information. So you can do it now.
Right.
And that's the nice thing. And what you've spoken about are some of the changes in applying for financial aid. And I think it's a shame that a lot of people have had some confusing or negative experiences in the far past with the financial aid application. When nowadays, I'm not saying that, you know, it's easy, but they've made it so much easier. It's an online application. There's skip logic involved in that financial aid application. So depending on your answers to some questions, you could skip a whole bunch of questions and be done relatively quickly.
And they also have it set up now where you can, in certain situations, you can actually import income information directly from the IRS database to the FAFSA.
No more looking at your 1040, what line is it, doing that. If you care to, and it's an option, you could have that information directly imported, and then you don't have to worry about it. So
yeah, then that also makes it much less likely that your application will have to be what we would call verified, you know, or scrutinized at a later date because it's assumed that the income information is as accurate as can be, you know, per the IRS database. So once you complete the FAFSA, you would receive an award letter, hopefully, you know, from your institution. And students can really, I mean, they can list as many colleges theoretically as they want on the FAFSA, correct? And that's another, I think, you know, students often say to me, well, I'm not sure if I want to go here. Well, you know, list them there anyway, right?
Okay.
You'll get an award letter.
It doesn't cost you anything. It's the free application for federal student aid. It's completely free, as is our admissions application. These are all free things. So yeah, go ahead and fill it out. Different schools will give financial aid packages at different times. So, you know, it's usually sometime in the spring for most schools. And different schools have different registration periods. We tend to open registration in April for the following fall. We're going to be opening registration for the spring term and winter term next week, October 28th, 9 a.m.
Okay, so, October 28th, okay.
Yes.
And then in terms of evaluating your financial aid awards, for those students that have, you know, oftentimes students will apply to multiple institutions. They'll apply to institutions of differing types. For example, you might apply to a 2-year community college like us. You might apply to a 4-year public like, say, Southern Connecticut State or UConn, and then you could also be applying to private institutions. So if you're one of those students, chances are you're going to have very different financial aid awards at those schools. Like, for example, at our institution, just about all of the financial aid that we award is what we would call need-based. Now, students can certainly, and we do encourage them to apply for outside scholarship funding, whether that's based on financial need, financial or merit, or in some cases both. But the financial aid that we're going to award is typically based on financial need, and that may or may not be the case at other institutions. The way I've always counseled students is to you know, not so much focus on the amount of aid you're getting from each institution, but instead to focus on, you know, how much that aid is relative to the overall cost of the institution. So focus on your net cost. You know, a smaller financial aid award from Ms. Nuntuck might actually be worth more relative to our price than for a private institution, for example.
Exactly. You're right. Costs vary widely among schools, and we are very affordable. And our students commute and everything, so there's not the housing and board and expenses of some other schools, and our tuition is low. But you're right. You know, you have to compare what your bottom line. What do I have to pay? And you're right. Like, so a smaller award at a lower cost school might be actually better than a bigger award at a higher cost school because your bottom line might still be higher, or it might not. And that's where you have to analyze. And that was one thing that I think I learned, many years ago, that some of the best advice you could give students as they're thinking about applying for college is not to rule out any institution until you actually get that financial aid package. So don't let that hinder your application. Apply. Okay, if it has a program that you're interested in, apply and fill out your financial aid application. Make sure you get everything in as early as possible. And then once you start getting those award packages, then you can start doing those comparisons. And that's really the smart way to do it, so that you're really making a decision, having all the knowledge that you possibly could.
Right. So if you focus on that overall sticker price and assume, there's no way I can afford that, it might be more affordable than you think once that financial aid award has discounted
You never know.
The price.
It really, it depends. And then your other point was excellent, that students can apply for private scholarships, and they should. Go out there, talk to your high school counselors, do the internet searches. Remember not to pay anybody for applying for a scholarship application, because there are some scams out there. But there are a lot of really great organizations that have money to give to students. And you don't know until you apply. And, filling out an application or writing an essay might take you a little bit, but if you actually got the scholarship, just think about the hourly pay rate. Return on that. That would be great. So that is good advice.
And then once the students, evaluate all their options and chooses Nantuck, right? Or at least that's our hope.
Yes.
The next step is typically to meet with an advisor. Assuming that you have an idea of what you want to study, or even if you don't, and you just want to go over your options, we have a really great advising office with dedicated folks at Nantuck, and they will help our students kind of walk through the process of, hey, what's my first year going to look like if I'm full-time versus part-time? What's it going to look like if I want to take classes just at night? Or what's it going to look like in year two? And what those professionals are really good at is helping students chart a course for how they might arrive at whatever their goal is, whether it's to transfer or whether it's to graduate. So, like you said in the beginning, it's a great environment for students. We pride ourselves on offering a nurturing environment for students that want to, whether it's start out full-time or, like you said, kind of ease into the higher education experience. But Stacy, that's all the time we have. I want to really thank you very much for carving out some time to come here with us tonight and talk about the student enrollment process. And for everybody out there, please come in and visit us. Come in and visit Stacy in the registrar's office, and she will be able to answer any questions you have, or if not, we'll be able to direct you to the person who can. But like I said, couldn't be more excited to have you on board. And
very excited to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Good night.
So close it can take you so far.